What's up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and today I am bringing you more 40 facts on the Warhammer universe. This time it is the Grey Knights yet again, but more specifically, Arvan Stern. So let us dive into the lore of this Grey Knight warrior. Among the Grandmasters and brother captains of the Grey Knights, there are few that would dispute that Stern exemplifies everything the chapter represents. When Drago named Stern his successor as brother captain of the Third Brotherhood, it was widely believed that Stern, as Drago's protege, would one day rise to the rank of Grand Master himself. Unfortunately for the Grey Knights, this was not to be Stern's fate. The machinations of the ruinous powers took a hand in his destiny when he led the assault upon the cult of the Red Talon on Antraxes. The cult of the Red Talon. Antraxes was a mining world famed across the Sudar subsector for its rare crimson bloodstone. It was foretold by the prognosticators that a great evil would rise upon this world. The Grey Knights then dispatched a demi-brotherhood to quell this uprising. Arvan Stern would lead them. When Stern's strike cruiser slipped out of the warp above Antraxes, he discovered a world already descending into the grip of the Dark Gods. From within the heart of the Antraxian mining clans, the Zechian demon Makachin had subverted the local populace, infecting the Grand Red Talon Citadel, a hive city suspended between 5 towering bloodstone peaks. From here, the Red Talon cult then spread to the world of Makachin, sowing discord and mayhem among the citizens of Antraxes. Worse still, the demon had already tainted the mines, binding warp-spawned nightmares into the rocks, and spreading the vile influence of chaos to other planets. On over a dozen worlds across the Sudar subsector, people wearing these bloodstone tokens began to succumb to possession of the Chaos Gods. The Grey Knights assessed the situation from orbit, and Stern identified that the center of the cult activity was the Red Talon Hive, but wisely recognized the threat posed by the Bloodstone trade. Of the 50 Grey Knights present, Brother Captain Stern ordered half of them to take on the Antraxes shipyards, while the remaining half would lead a direct strike against the cult, and the demon guiding their actions. In a blaze of blinding light, Stern and his brothers materialized into the spire of the Red Talon. They found themselves surrounded by thousands of cultists, bowing before the glorious form of Makachin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Grey Knights, standing back to back, fired in all directions with storm bolters and side cannons. In moments, scores of cultists were torn to pieces, their ragged, bloody remains hurled onto the floor in a tangled mess. As one, the remaining cultists charged at the Grey Knights, while Makachin took flight above the conflict on wings of fire, hurling spells down upon the invaders. Meanwhile, throughout the hive, millions of traitor Planetary Defense Force troopers heeded the demon's summons, snatching up weapons and making towards the conflict. Stern knew that he had only minutes to defeat Makachin before his brothers were overwhelmed. Ordering his warriors to form up around him, Stern began reciting the liturgies of banishment. He entered a battle of wills with Makachin, his mind tearing at the threads holding the Lord of Change to the material realm. With brutal thrusts and sweeps of their nemesis force halberds, the Grey Knights kept the cultists at bay. Their armor spattered with gore, and the ground at their feet ankle-deep in blood. Makachin wove progressively more complex and maddening spells in an attempt to slay Stern, but under the onslaught of the Grey Knight's willpower, it could feel its mortal form bleeding away, until finally, with a piercing scream of rage, Makachin burst into a cloud of blue fire, before vanishing back into the warp. Almost simultaneously, the last cultist fell before the Grey Knight's blades, falling into a pile of his slaughtered kin. Stern quickly voxed the awaiting strike cruiser with word that the deed was done, and the vessel completed its arc around Anthraxis and plunged back into low orbit. The first Planetary Defense Force squads burst into the temple spire in time to see the Grey Knights vanish in an explosion of light, leaving behind thousands of bloody, mangled bodies. Moments later, the flaming wreckage of the Anthraxis shipyards crashed through the spire, the ensuing explosions demolishing a substantial portion of the hive. As the flames spread, the strike cruiser began its own bombardment to ensure the planet would forever be scarred and scored of the chaos taint. The strands of vengeance. When Stern's mind dueled with that of the demon McCatchin, the two became inextricably linked, and the Lord of Change grew obsessed with the destruction of this mortal that had in minutes undone the work of centuries. At first, the signs of McCatchin's revenge were not apparent to Stern or his brothers. Even the prognosticators were unable to see through the tangled web of plots and schemes woven by the demons of Zeech. From the realm of chaos, McCatchin would dispatch lesser demons to plague Stern, resulting in events such as the Shadow Merge on Thranis III and the Banquet of Nightmares in the depths of the 100 Hives. Misfortune stalked Stern like a predator. An ash storm descended on the Grey Knights as they appeared on Tanris III. Choking on their augurs and fouling their Storm Raven's engines, a hivequake crushed scores of 100 hive enforcers. Both were freak occurrences never seen before on either world. 101 years after the banishment on Anthraxis, McCatchin returned to the material plane, seeking to fulfill his plans to kill Stern. Long had the demon plotted during its enforced exile, and it had carefully considered the best place to lay a trap for his mortal adversary. The Lord of Change chose the world of Sargatha, deep within the wilds of the Ghoul Stars, a cursed place, even avoided by orcs. The root cause of the shadow that hung over Sargatha lay within its countless obsidian pyramids, vast megalithic structures left behind by some forgotten Xenos architect. More than mere physical structures, each one seemed to still the warp around it and drink in psychic energy. McCatchin knew that if he could lure Stern to Sargatha, it would rob the Grey Knights of much of their psychic power. The Lord of Change had to also tread with care, for the same pyramids that would give him the advantage would also take it away from him. So it was that McCatchin possessed the body of an unwilling cultist and used him as a vessel, before laying a trail of blood and death, bearing the demon's mark that would bring Stern right to him. Stern knew that this was a trap, yet he came anyway. The stoic warrior accepting the burden of slaying McCatchin was his to bear. He would have confronted the demon alone, but Drago insisted he take 4 of his brothers with him. When the Grey Knights set foot on Sargatha, they knew that once McCatchin had chosen it. The obsidian pyramids eroded the Battle Brothers' psychic powers, a feeling like a million tiny metallic insects crawling behind their eyes. Augurs had shown the world of lifeless rock, neither man nor demon existing upon its surface. So when Stern walked among the pyramids, he saw the piles of corpses at the bases stirring at his passing, that he knew the nature of this trap. McCatchin had seeded Sargatha with a cult army, sending them into a lifeless slumber with warp sorcery. As the cultists rose up, McCatchin moved among them, transferring his essence from one body to the next. Forced to rely solely on their blades and bolters alone, the Grey Knights set about killing the horde, cutting them down with brutal thrusts and blowing them to pieces with bolt shells. However, every time Stern would crush the throat of a cultist or bury his sword in another's chest, the demon would leap to another form. After hours of bitter struggle, Stern alone remained alive, his brothers fallen, his bolter long since spent, and his blade lost beneath the dead. Upon a pile of corpses, the brother captain crushed the skull of the final cultist in his fist, watching the light of McCatchin fade from his eyes as the demon fled back to the warp. Never again has the demon come so close to killing Stern, though he has tried repeatedly. Many times has the Council of Titan urged Stern to accept the mantle of Grand Master. Even Drago has tried to convince him. However, Stern has vowed that he will not accept the role of a Grand Master until he has vanquished McCatchin once and for all, for the brother captain does not wish to bring this burden with him to the council. And so the long war between the greater demon of Tzeentch and Stern continues, robbing the chapter of potentially its greatest leader, and prompting some to wonder if this has not been the plan of the Dark Gods all along. Tzeentch's curse. The curse of McCatchin follows Stern like a shadow. Since that fateful day in the spire of the Red Talon, Stern has never been free of the Lord of Change's meddling, and the warrior now takes nothing for granted. What was seen as the hand of fate, coincidentally or happenstance, must now be carefully considered and meticulously examined for the demonic fingerprints of McCatchin. Stern and his battle brothers have come to accept that strange things happen in his presence. Within the halls of the Citadel of Titan, these phenomena are seldom more than hands of a chronometer creeping backwards, a mirror distorting into a laughing face, or a single bloody tear rolling down the face of a statue. Beyond the wards and seals of Titan, they can become more pronounced and even deadly. Weapons may jam for no reason, or a newly forged blade might break as it strikes a blow. These are the invisible demons of McCatchin at work, tiny craven things in thrall to the Lord of Change that cannot manifest fully in the real world. Instead, they make their mischiefs, removing primers from bolt rounds, breaking purity seals, or pulling the pins out of grenades. These same demons aid Stern's enemies, subtly altering the paths of bullets, shrapnel, and even blades. Stern's own psychic sense allows him to see the places where the demon's influence cannot reach, black spots in reality, impenetrable to demonkind. Using these as anchors for his action, Stern harnesses moments of chance and fleeting opportunities. Thus, he will often know just when to strike or duck away from a blow. Demons are creatures of madness and fear. When we deny them our sanity and deny them our fear, they are nothing more than just dust upon the wind, or lies upon the tongue of a madman. Brother Captain, Arvin Stern.